Good evening, everybody. Hope you all can hear me. I'm going to begin this meeting this evening. First, I want to thank the clerk's office of course once again, continuing doing their excellent effort, keeping the council rolling along, keeping this legislative body functioning during this horrific times. By the way, this health issue. Hopefully, everybody's staying as safe and healthy as possible. By the way. And of course, we give regards to all our constituents and everybody who's listening this evening. We're going to be all set, Madam Clerk? Recording? Great, okay. So it's Thursday, January 28, 2021. Madam Clerk, can you please call, we're going to begin the City Council Committee on Finance, begin this meeting. Roll call, please.
Chairman Igliosi.
Present.
Vice Chairwoman Ryan.
Yeah.
Councilman Anthony.
Present.
Councilman Taylor.
Here.
We have 4 present and 1 absent. We have a quorum.
I'm here. Sorry.
We got you. I saw you, Councilwoman. Acknowledged. Councilwoman Miller's present. Councilman Correa is present. Councilman Espinal is present. Councilman Gunn is present. And of course, Gina Costa, Internal Auditor. Jimmy Lombardi. And we also have Ken Cheverini, our City Solicitor. Also, I would like to acknowledge you guys this evening. Is it for the first time, Mr. Clerk, that the press, as part of the continuing, actually evolving process to make these types of Zoom meetings more open and more transparent, I guess we have the first time that we have the news agencies the ability to be actual participants and be on the list. Is that correct?
That is correct, Mr. Chair.
So, good job, Mr. Clerk and Madam Clerk, for continuing, making this process more accessible to everybody involved. So thank you. Good job. So with that, I'm going to take some quick motions first. I need a motion to continue items 1, 2, and 3. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
I have a motion by Councilman Taylor. I have a second.
Second.
Second. I'm a Councilwoman Anthony. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Next, let's take an item out of order, make a motion to continue item number 11. Next meeting. Motion to do that?
So moved.
Second.
By Councilman Taylor. Discussion. All in favor? Aye. Motion carries. Next, I'm going to take motion to take 3 items out of order and to hear them and swear the individuals.
To take 11 out of order?
Yes, I did.
But what are you going to...
We did a motion to take 11 out of order and to continue. Okay? So motion to take items 7, 8, and 9 out of order and to swear the individuals in and to begin that process. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Second, Councilman Anthony. Discussion. All in favor? Aye. Thank you all. Madam Clerk, items 7, 8, and 9, please read into the record, and then let's have the individuals identify and swear them into the record.
Is Ms. LaSalle present? Let me see if we can identify Ms. LaSalle.
Well, let's do this, Mr. Clerk. Madam Clerk, why don't you read the 3 items? Then Mr. Clerk can identify the individuals. Madam Clerk.
Number 7, communication from His Honor the Mayor dated December 10, 2020, informing the honorable members of the City Council that pursuant to Sections 302B and 1103 of the Providence Formal Charter
Oh, they want to continue.
of 1980 as amended in Public Law, Chapter 45-50, Sections 1
Oh.
to 31, passed in 1987, here to stay reappointing Patricia LaSalle of 49 Gallatin Street, Providence, Rhode Island, 02907 as a member of the Human Relations Commission for a term to expire on January 31st, 2024, and respectfully submit the same for your approval.
Okay, hang on, Madam Clerk. I might have misspoke. If I may ask the committee members to take a motion to actually motion to continue items 7, 8, and 9. My apologies. The 3 individuals are involved and have a prior engagement. So I have a motion to continue 7, 8, and 9 by Councilman
Second.
Anthony, second by Councilman Keller. Discussion. All in favor? Thank you. Thank you. Committee members? All right. Okay, so let's take it from the top, we'll take number 4, Madam Clerk.
Communication from the Honorable Mayor dated December 2nd, 2020, informing the honorable members of the City Council that pursuant to Sections 302B and 1013 of the Providence Home Rule Charter of 1980 as amended and public law, Chapter 45-50, Sections 1 through 31, passed in 1987, he is this day reappointing Miguel Quezada of 24 Cola Street, Providence, Rhode Island, 02940, as a member of the City Plan Commission for a term to expire on January 31st, 2026, and respectfully submit the same for your approval.
All right, so, I think we have an amendment, Madam Clerk, to this one you said?
Yes, we do.
Okay, please express what the amendment is.
We're going to have a change of address. I believe I wrote it on yours.
Yeah, do you know from what to what?
So it will go, whatever is on here, it's 24 Corliss Street to the number on Princeton?
48 Princeton Avenue. So we have a
Princeton Avenue.
can I have a motion to amend item number 4 to, correctly reflect the individual's address from 24 Corliss Street, Providence, to 48 Princeton Avenue in Providence, Rhode Island. Motion
So moved.
by Councilman Anthony, Councilman
Second.
Taylor. All in favor? Thank you. Madam Clerk, let's, Miguel Quezada, let's have the individual be identified and sworn in, please.
Mr. Quezada, if you are present and on the telephone, please use the *9 to raise your hand, or use the Zoom app to raise your hand. I'm not seeing, Mr. Quezada present at this moment.
Okay, so let's do this while we're waiting. So let's move on to the next individual. I think we see, do it. Let me take a moment. I think we see Eugenia Marks, so why don't we do this until you can identify the additional one? Why don't we make a motion to just continue item number 4 and go to item number 5 to give the clerk a chance to track down the individual?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Councilman Anthony, a second by Councilman Taylor. Discussion, all in favor? Aye. Madam Clerk, item number 5, please.
Communication from the Honorable Mayor dated December 2nd, 2020, informing the honorable members of the City Council that pursuant to Section 302B of the Providence Home Rule Charter of 1980 as amended and public law, Chapter 45-50, Sections 1 through 31, passed in 1987, he is this day reappointed Eugenia Marks of 11 Apple Street, Providence, Rhode Island, 02906, a member of the Providence Harbor Management Commission for a term to expire on December 31st, 2023, and respectfully submit the same to your approval.
Great. Is Eugenia Marks, Mr. Clerk, can you please identify? I actually saw the number.
Yes, I did. I actually just promoted, Ms. Martin. I believe that she...
Okay. Please unmute Eugenia Marks. Identify, Ms. Marks, can you hear us, please?
Yes, I can, thank you.
Welcome. Could you, Mr. Clerk, could you please swear Ms. Marks in?
Ms. Marks, would you please raise your right hand? Do you swear under penalty of perjury that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I so affirm.
Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome, Ms. Marks. Hopefully everybody's doing well and hopefully safe and sound. Thank you for attending this evening's City Council Committee on Finance meeting. The mayor's request to reappoint you to the Providence Harbor Management Commission is before this committee and eventually before the full council. Would you like to just give a quick background about yourself and why you would like to get reappointed? What I hear is one of the most exciting commissions in the state of Rhode Island, which is Providence Harbor Management Commission, which seems to have and I hear there's a lot of stuff going on there, and we're trying to put a little levity on the situation. So Ms. Marks, you have the mic.
Good evening, Chairman Igliozzi and members of the council. I'm honored to be reappointed. I'm retired from a career in environmental policy. I remain active in the city, in the Mount Hope area, in food security issues, and as well, I'm still active in the Environment Council of Rhode Island. Water quality was my specialty. And so I'm very interested in the harbor. I live in an area where I can see the Seekonk River by walking there, or I walk to Fox Point. I have taught as a tutor in Mary Fogarty School. At one time during my career, I was the state coordinator for the International Coastal Cleanup, and I was very interested in the public access at the end of Public Street on the harbor. We had a cleanup there, and the many wonderful possibilities for people to interact with our active harbor. And our harbor is certainly an important part of the city's economy, both from a commercial trade point of view as well as from a recreational point of view. And so I'm happy to see that integration of land activities along the harbor, as well as keeping the harbor an open place for the citizens to enjoy recreationally as well as economically.
Thank you. Very well said. Thank you, by the way. And thank you for willing to take the time in your day, by the way, and give up your time to continue your service on the Providence Harbor Management Commission. Comments or questions? I see Councilwoman Anthony. Councilwoman Anthony, you have the mic.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Marks, I'd just like to thank you so much for all of your service to our community. We're so very appreciative of you willing to serve on the Harbor Commission. I was just curious as to what, I don't know how long you have served on the commission, but I was just wondering if you could just give us a little feedback on some of the things you have accomplished or things that the Harbor Commission has accomplished over the past year or so.
The Harbor Commission has been active in securing mooring sites in an effort to bring greater tourism to the city so that people would have day moorings as well as longer term moorings. And we were able to launch that program through the Harbor Master here in the city. We've also worked with a group on the east side thinking about boat access along River Road. We've looked into the public access area for Public Street and trying to make the area along Collier Point, which is public access, but very difficult to reach because of the city streets and the traffic situation to get to that area. So we look forward to continuing our work looking at the harbor itself. And I have been working with the EPA committee that looks into the harbor and its impact on the local neighborhoods. That's not a part of the Harbor Commission, but that's a personal interest of mine. But the harbor itself is interested, the Harbor Commission itself is interested in the integrated use of the harbor.
Excellent. Thank you so much.
Thank you each for your good service to the city.
Sorry, thank you, Councilwoman Anthony. Now, any other comments or questions by committee members, council members? With that, we have a motion to recommend approval for Ms. Marks for a reappointment. Motion by
So moved.
Councilwoman Anthony, second by Councilwoman Castillo. Discussion, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, Ms. Marks, for your time, energy, and effort. We appreciate you.
Thank you very much for your affirmation.
Thank you. Make a motion to, Mr. Clerk has identified Mr. Quezada, so motion to take up item number 4, please, again, and to have the individual sworn in and begin and have it read into the record.
Taking a motion.
Motion by Councilman Anthony, I believe, second by Councilman Castillo. Discussion, all in favor? Aye. Motion carries. Madam Clerk, item number 4, and please read item number 4 and have Mr. Quezada sworn in, please.
Good evening, Mr. Quezada. Will you please raise your right hand and you swear under penalty of perjury that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, I do.
Thank you. Welcome, Mr. Cruzado. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Same thing, you're looking to get reappointed to the City Plan Commission. So could you just quickly tell us a little bit about you and why you would like to get reappointed and what you would like to try to achieve? You have the mic, sir.
Yes. So I've I came in mid-term, so I've been on a commission for just over a year. And I have a different experience from most people on these commissions. I don't come from a background in real estate development, et cetera. I'm really a representative of the community. So I live in Elmwood. My professional background is actually in pharmaceuticals. So I work in the healthcare industry. And, you know, as a citizen, proud citizen of Providence, I grew up here most of my life. I love it here. And this is a way for me to, you know, to give back to the city and to represent the citizens of Providence to make sure that, you know, our goals, aspirations, and needs are addressed at the City Plan Commission.
Thank you, Mr. Cruzado. Comments or questions by committee members? Councilwoman Anthony.
Yes, I'd just like to thank you so much for serving, and just interested in your impression after being on the CPC for a year. Or do you have any little items that stand out of significance that you think the CPC has achieved this year?
So as you know, from obviously from your role, Providence is going through, you know, its own resurgence, and you know, there's a lot of things to put into balance here. There's a lot of things in terms of development that are by right, which sometimes has to be, you have to kind of create that bridge with the community where they may want something, but there's very limited in terms of what we can do because there's so many different moving parts in the city that have to be addressed. But it does give us an opportunity to shape the city to what it's going to become, you know, in the future, make sure that we do respect the plan that's in place, but also see where the community might want to affect change later, which we see it happening on our board, but sometimes it's, like I said, we're limited. So it's a little frustrating because we know where it might be the best interest to do X, Y, Z, but you know, that's not in our purview at that point. But I think for my responsibility is really to push back some things. How should I say? I don't necessarily have to always go with, you know, and this might get me in trouble, I guess, but you have to go with the State Department on what, you know, sometimes it's a recommendation. And I think that I do a good job at really bringing up that voice to listen to what those questions are. And one of the things that we've done in just my year here is to push back on some of the proposals to say you need to go back to the community, have a true engagement. And that's something that I really, you know, focus on. It's not just presenting something, but really having engagement and see what those proposals might change due to that conversation. And that's something that I'll continue to push upon.
I'll say that I really appreciate that because I think it really is important for the community to have a voice in what's going on in terms of, you know, the items before the CPC. So I thank you so much for focusing particularly on that matter.
No, thank you. And I've seen you at some of the meetings, you know, engaging and pushing for that. So, you know, on behalf of the citizens of Providence, you know, we appreciate your engagement in that respect. And, you know, we're not always going to get what we want. You know, we have to be realistic. You know, it's hard for everyone to win, but being in my profession, I think more often than not, there's an opportunity for win-win. Sometimes you just kind of sit back and understand where we all are, you know, and from there move up in terms of a real conversation and see how we can, you know, negotiate and find a way that everyone can be happy. And more often than not, like I said, I find that sometimes we just got to sit that back and we don't recognize that, you know, that the situation could be a win in some ways.
Thank you so much.
Thank you to Councilwoman.
Thank you. Any other comments, questions by committee members, council members? Then we have a motion to recommend approval.
So moved.
Councilman Anthony, second by Councilman Castillo. Discussion? Mr. Cruzado, I appreciate, want to thank you, by the way, for your service and your willingness to get reappointed to the City Plan Commission. It's important that, that community engagement and involvement is basically part of the bedrock of that process, and it's great to hear that that's part of your process on that board, so, or commission. Thank you very much. On behalf of my constituents and myself.
Thank you. Oh, sorry.
Okay, no problem. You have the last word.
No, I was just saying thank you very much for, for considering me and for also taking me out of turn today. So thank you very much for doing that. And I'm proud to serve in any way I can.
You're very much welcome. Be well and be safe. All in favor?
Aye.
All Thank you. Next item number 6, Madam Clerk.
Communication from His Honor the Mayor dated December 9th, 2020, informing the honorable members of the City Council that pursuant to Section 302B of the Providence Local Charter of 1980 as amended in public law, Chapter 45-50, Sections 1 through 31, passed in 1987, he is to stay in Edith Warren, Esquire, of 304 Fair Street, Warwick, Rhode Island, 02888, as a member of the Providence Harbor Management Commission for a term to expire on December 31st, 2023. Respectfully submit the same for your approval.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Mr. Clerk, could you please swear in the individual?
Good evening, Ms. Warren. Would you please raise your right hand? Do you swear under penalty of perjury that the testimony you are about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I certainly do.
Thank you.
Welcome, Ms. Warren. Thank you for attending this evening.
Thank you, Chairman.
And so, could you just quickly talk a little bit about you and why you would like to get reappointed to the Providence Harbor Management Commission? Maybe, and I guess point out maybe some of the things that you find, that you think are important or things that need to be addressed. You have the mic.
Thank you. I've been on the commission since its inception, March 2014. And I am an attorney, and I don't think I'll ever set foot in court again, but in family court. And I lived in Providence for 37 years, and I'm very passionate about public access to the waterfront. And one of the things that we started in March doing the harbor management plan, which was submitted back in December of 2015. And that gave the city of Providence the ground, the workings to go forward with doing public access and protecting the harbor, and hopefully, and also we created moorings. And while the last time the commission met was in March of 2020, and at that time we had 2 applications for moorings, and as Eugenia spelled out, we're very interested in creating access to the city of Providence by people maybe coming up from Newport by boat, things like that. And hopefully we will be able to do that. I'd like to stay on the commission for the time being. I was going to step off, but in the interest of continuity, and because we had only 4 members, after speaking with Dave Everett with the Planning Commission, he urged me to stay on because I am the vice chair of the commission, and have been with it since its inception. And for continuity, I would like to stay on and be reappointed so that I can see some of the things through. Some of the things we've done we've done things like change the ordinance so that it reflects the language in the plan, the harbor management plan. And I'm very, very interested in a clean environment and clean water. And we've worked a little bit with the rowing people down on Grotto Street. What is it? The Narragansett Boating Commission. I can't remember. Rick Richards runs that. And just trying to pull the people of Providence, and also not only the people of Providence, but the people of the state, because the way the statutes are written, we can only give moorings to a few people from Providence, and then the rest need to go to people in the state, which is good, because if you're living out in Cumberland, you don't have water access, so that's a good thing. All right, your turn.
Thank you, Ms. Warren. Any comments or questions by Councilman Anthony first? Councilman Anthony?
Ms. Warren, I just wanted to say thank you so much, because I think continuity is so important, and I do appreciate all the work that you have done and are willing to continue to do, particularly around the issues of public access and our clean water. So thank you for making those a priority, and thank you so much for continuing to serve.
Excellent. Great comments. Any other comments or questions by committee members, council members? A motion to approve recommendation by, motion by Councilman Anthony, second by Councilman Castillo.
So moved.
Discussion? Ms. Warren, I just want to thank you, by the way, for your willingness to continue to serve people of Providence, of course yourself, and also the state of Rhode Island. It's wonderful to hear about your passion and your concerns about clean water and the city's open spaces. That's great. With that, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much. Be well and be safe.
Stay safe, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Madam Clerk, item number 10, please.
Communication from His Honor the Mayor dated December 18th, 2020, informing the honorable members of the City Council that pursuant to Section 302B and 1009 of the Providence Home Rule Charter of 1989, as amended in public law, Chapter 45-50, Sections 1 through 31, passed in 1987, he is this day reappointing Mark Greenfield, 56 Alumni Avenue, Providence, Rhode Island, 02906, as the chairman of the Zoning Board of Review for a term to expire on January 31st, 2026, and respectfully submits the same for your review.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Is Mr. Greenfield, you have him connected, Mr. Clerk?
Yes.
Great. Could we swear the individual in and we can begin that process?
Mr. Greenfield, could you unmute yourself? Can you hear me?
You and unmuting myself now.
Could you please raise your right hand? Do you swear under penalty of perjury that the testimony you are about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth to help you God?
I do.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Welcome, Mr. Greenfield. Thank you for your this evening coming and attending the City Council Committee on Finance. Could you give a little background on yourself, and then, of course, why you'd like to get reappointed to the, and by the way, as the chairperson of the Zoning Board of Review, and maybe some of the highlights, and maybe even some of the trials that you might have had to experience over the years. So you have the mic, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, members of the council. I don't know how many years I've been chairman. I've been on the board for 10 years, maybe chairman for 8. I don't think we have enough time to go through the highlights and the lowlights of the matters that come before us. Course of the years, but I will tell you that I, if nothing else, strive to make certain that all of our hearings are handled professionally, handled cordially, and I go out of my way to make certain that everyone who attends our hearings has an opportunity to speak and to be listened to. Our board and the people who run the board and or members of our board, Alexis Thompson and Bhupa Sath, who secretary and administrated the board, do an amazing job for the city and keeping us on task. I mean, you know, what you do, the people that you don't always see in front of the camera and the work that they do, and they do a great job for me. And I mean, the board works hard. We have matters, some contentious, some not, but I think we do our best to handle them all professionally, and our record of being overturned in Superior Court is pretty good. So I think we do a pretty good job of handling matters properly, professionally. And as to why I want to be reappointed, I'm sort of getting to that point in my career where I wasn't certain I wanted to, but maybe echoing the words of others before me in the instance of continuity and service to the city, I decided to sign on again. So I enjoy doing it. I'm happy to serve. So if you have questions of me, I'm happy to answer some.
Yep. Thank you, Mr. Greenfield.
You're welcome.
Questions, Councilwoman Anthony. Councilwoman?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I would just like to say that I've had the pleasure of serving with Mr. Greenfield. He was the acting chair, was on the zoning board, and he is exactly right. He runs the meetings professionally, respectfully, and he really does go out of his way to make sure that everyone who appears is heard. And I've seen it. It's an important board. It's important that it be run properly, and a record is created. And he is exactly right. He's got a great staff. I'm really, really appreciative of his service and his willingness to continue. And the staff is, again, I would just thank you so much for mentioning them, because they really are the backbone of the zoning board. So thank you so much for continuing to serve.
Thank you, Councilwoman.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Any other comments, questions by committee members, council members? With that, do we have a motion to recommend Mr. Greenfield's reappointment to the chairman of the zoning board of review? Is there a motion?
Second motion.
Second.
Motion by Councilman Anthony, second by Councilman Castillo. Discussion. Mr. Greenfield, I want to take this time to thank you for your years of service. We appreciate your willingness to continue, as well as for the continuity and for the sake of all our constituents. Thank you very much. With that, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you, Mr. Greenfield. Be well and be safe.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, members of the council.
Thank you. Next, we're going to take, we're going to take item out of order. Motion to take item number 13 out of order. Motion to take
So
item
moved.
13 out of order by Councilman Taylor, second. Councilman Castillo, discussion, all in favor? Aye. Madam Clerk, item number 13, please.
Resolution authorizing approval of the following contract awards by the Board of Contract and Supply in accordance with section 21-23B of the Code of Ordinances, Hilltop Securities Asset Management LLC, Water Supply Board.
Great, thank you. And the other one's water supply also, right?
Yes.
Okay, so also a motion to take item number 14 out of order too, so we can hear both at the same time.
So moved.
By Councilman Taylor, second by Councilman Castillo. Discussion, all in favor? Aye, motion carries. Item number 14, Madam Clerk.
Resolution authorizing approval of the following change order contract award by the Board of Contract and Supply in accordance with section 21-26D of the Code of Ordinances, Invoice Cloud Water Supply Board.
All right, thank you very much. Who's going to talk about speak up on these matters? I think we have Nancy Pearl. Mr. Clerk, could you possibly,
Yes, give me one moment. I'm actually also finding the other members that would like to speak.
I believe Peter Pelosi is on.
Yes, Mr. Pelosi, I'm now on.
Beth Paquin, is she on there?
One moment, sorry, it's a little bit.
8018 is my cell.
Yeah, we've got you on, just a little bit more work for people calling in on phone, so.
Nancy is going to do 13. I'm going to do 14. So we are ready, I believe.
great to hear. So let's swear in Ms. Perillo and Mr. Pelosi at this time. Mr. Clerk?
Mr. Pelosi, Ms. Paquin,
Perillo.
Ms. Barillo, can you please, and I also have, Ms., oh yeah, okay. Please raise your right hand. You swear under penalty of perjury that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth to help you God?
I do.
I do.
Ms. Perillo, please identify yourself for the record and your position, please.
I'm Nancy Perillo. I am the Senior Manager of Finance at Providence Water.
Mr. Pelosi, could you please identify yourself and your position, please, sir?
My name is Peter Pelosi. I'm the Deputy General Manager of Providence Water.
Thank you both. Let the record reflect that Vice Chair Joanne Ryan is present and it's accounted for. Madam Clerk? Thank you. I guess item number 13, Ms. Pearl, you're going to speak about?
Yes, this invoice is for, hang on, arbitrage work that's done by Hilltop Securities for us. They, every 5 years, for all the bonds that we issue, every 5 years, we're required to file with the IRS that we are in compliance with the arbitrage rules. Hilltop Securities is the financial advisor, one of the financial advisors for the city. As part of their diligence and due diligence with us on these bonds, they do the calculations for us. We've used them. They've been used in the past. They're one of the approved vendors for the city, and this is a required thing that we have to do with the IRS every 5 years. So they have all of the information. They have historically done these calculations for us, and this 36,000 represents the work on those calculations on several different issues that we have outstanding with the Rhode Island Infrastructure Bank.
Thank you, Ms. Perillo. Questions, Mr. Lombardi, the City Treasurer?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Perillo, I know that we have two financial advisors for the city. Did you go to the other one to ask them what their pricing is?
No.
Okay. Isn't that so? So we have so as part of the award of financial advisors, there are two.
Mhm.
The agreement, at least within the city, was that we would contact both of them, and that whoever gave the better price, we would go with.
Well, I did not reach out to PFM. I went to Hilltop because they have done the calculations in the past. They have all the historical records that these arbitrage calculations are built upon. And it would have been quite onerous to try and transfer all that information from the firm that has been doing them historically to a new firm in the middle of the process.
So that's your testimony that you know for a fact that PFM would have come in higher?
No.
Okay.
And ask them.
Okay. So how do you know this is a fair price?
I don't.
Okay.
I did not ask PFM to give us a price because Hilltop Securities, as the preferred financial advisor, because they have been historically involved in all of our bond issues, they did the calculations. They have all of the historical information that I don't have.
Mr. Treasurer, Mr. Chairman, this again, Peter Pelosi.
Perillo? Mr. Perillo? Yes?
We will.
Mr. Pelosi, I'm sorry.
Yeah. I know it's late for this year, possibly, but I can guarantee you that going forward, we will get quotes from both companies moving forward as these IRS documents are necessary. We will reach out to both of the city companies way beforehand and get quotes from both.
Mr. Pelosi, may I ask, Mr. Chairman, may I ask a question?
Mr. Lombardi?
Mr. Pelosi, thank you for that. I appreciate it. Would you mind just doing, just as I'll say as a favor to me, just calling them and making sure that, I don't know if you call PFM or just call Hilltop, and just tie it out that this is a reasonable price. So if you can do your due diligence just to make sure, then I would appreciate that. You know, I know that you always try to do that. Maybe you've done it, but in this situation, I just like to make sure that it's a fair price. That's all.
Yes, we definitely will. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any further comments or questions by committee members, council members? With that, do we have a motion to recommend item, Does it recommend approval and send it back, right? With the caveat that Mr. Pelosi will address the treasurer's concern.
So moved.
Second.
Right? Motion by Councilman Vice Chair Ryan, second by Councilman Taylor Castillo. Discussion, all in favor?
Okay.
Item number 14, Madam Clerk.
Resolution authorizing approval of the following change order contract award by the Board of Contractors Supply in accordance with Section 21-16D of the Code of Ordinances, Invoice Cloud Water Supply Board.
Great, thank you. Mr. Pelosi, are you going to speak on this one, sir?
Yes, Chairman.
You
Thank
have
you,
the mic.
Chairman.
You have the mic.
In 2014, Providence Water offered to its customers a way to pay their water bills online. We went out to bid, and Invoice Cloud was that third-party vendor in 2014. In 2017, they got a 2-year extension, and then in April of 2020, they were again awarded a 3-year contract with a potential of an additional 2-year extension. Their contract was for $100,000 a year for 3 years. Due to the pandemic that basically hit everywhere in March of 2020, and due to Governor Raimondo's state of emergency that was issued, the Public Utilities Commission opened docket 5022, in essence, as a protection for our ratepayers and every ratepayer in the state of Rhode Island. They ordered Providence Water, Narragansett Bay, Providence Gas, or Narragansett Electric, all of the utilities, to stop shutoffs to protect the homeowners because of possible loss of job, because of layoffs, as well as to stop interest. So we can no longer charge interest on outstanding water bills. They also, on June 2nd, basically ordered all utilities to absorb the fees that the customers regularly were paying for online credit card payments, HCH fees, and what have you. Providence Water has about 10,000 customers that pay us on a monthly basis via Invoice Cloud. Since June 2nd, we have averaged approximately $27,000 additional dollars per month to pay these fees, and we pay them to Invoice Cloud. Again, these are fees that customers in the past have always paid. In September, the PUC met again to try to listen to ratepayers, to listen to utilities with regard to stopping this, because obviously it's $27,000 a year that we had not expected to pay. And they decided to keep having the utilities to pay it. So this $972,000, I'll call it change order, is in essence the $27,000 per month for the 36-month period that we have with Invoice Cloud. Hopefully, the PUC soon, we petitioned them in December again to reverse this, and we're told no. Hopefully, this will end, and then those payments from Providence Water to Invoice Cloud will stop, and the customers, again, will be responsible for those fees. But at this time, we have an additional $27,000 that we've been paying since June, and it looks to be $27,000 and more as more customers sign up for automatic payments, electronic payments each month. Hopefully I answered that to your satisfaction.
So this is where technology actually played against the scenario. if everybody's still back in the old, a letter and an envelope and a stamp, we would not be having this conversation, right?
That's correct, Chairman. That's correct.
So
No good deed goes unpunished.
So that's how, so basically this is where technology is costing us problems, right, with that. So where do you get the money? What I don't understand is where does the money come from? Does it come from your general budget and then you plug it in for the next fiscal year? Can you explain it to me? Because you said this is for 36 months? Is that right? This represents 36 months?
Yes, that's their current contract with the anticipation, and just in case this doesn't end, we will be paying approximately $27,000 each month while Invoice Cloud is with us through the duration of their contract.
And this started June of 2020, right?
2020, yes. June 2nd, 2020 is when the PUC order opened docket 5022.
So my question is, but right now, so then that's not a full 36 months yet. What you want to do is have the change. Why are they invoicing us now for something that hasn't happened yet? Or you get my point? My point is, how come it's just not based on the months that have already occurred? You understand what I'm saying? Versus the entire length of the contract where,
I totally understand, and we've been paying $27,000 more each month, but we didn't think it'd be prudent to come back every month and ask for another $27,000. This is to cover us for the 3 years that Invoice Cloud is currently under contract with Providence Water. Okay. Again, hopefully it stops. The docket gets, the PUC closes docket 5022, and at that time, we'll come back to you and tell you that this is no longer necessary. Because we have to pay them at $27,000 a month. That $100,000 contract that they have per year is going to be expired very quickly in 5-6 months. Keep in mind, this is over and above their $5,000 to $7,000 fees that they charge us to process payments. This is over and above that work, which is our original $100,000 a year.
So this represents the fee that the customer would have been charged when they use the service. Is that what you're saying?
That is correct.
So it's roughly what, like basically a $2.70 fee, something like that?
It's a $3.95. It's a $3.95 credit card fee for a residential. It's a $13.95 fee for commercial. There are 50 cent and 40 cent charges for ACH when a customer signs up and has the money taken directly out of their checking account. And then there's a $10 fee to the customer if that check bounces. Now we have to pay it. So it's the total of it. We get a monthly recap every month, and the average is just under $27,000.
And is there no way where you can revisit the contract with these folks? Because everybody's in the same boat, like that they could ease off on their amount of profit. So this way, because at the end of the day, even if you can, you fix this change order, eventually all it means is you're going to probably have to raise your rates in the future to cover for all the losses. So
these charges, if I'm not mistaken, Chairman, aren't really them making more money. It's the credit card companies making the money. It's the credit card companies that the customer would be paying. And it's not Invoice Cloud making more money, but because we are mandated to pay it, Invoice Cloud is in essence getting the money from us and then sending it to the credit card companies.
I see. All right. Mr. Lombardi?
So I just wanted to agree with Mr. Pelosi where those rates, I mean, they might be making a few bucks on it, but the credit card exchange or the cost to take that money out, there is some cost in there as well to the company, or I'm going to say the majority of it is probably cost. So they're not making much money on those transactions. It's basically the credit card exchange that's making the money.
Correct.
All right. Councilwoman, Vice Chair Leader, Ryan?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Mr. Pelosi, for the explanation. I just am wondering, as our treasurer has stated, those are clearly transactional fees, and I'm wondering, do we have an agreement when a customer signs up for those automatic payments that they assume the costs of the automatic payments?
They have the agreement with the credit card company, not Providence Water. When the PUC opened this docket, they flipped that responsibility to the utility to, in essence, pay the credit card company. So we, again, send the money to Invoice Cloud, and then they send it to each individual credit card company. So that agreement or that relationship is between the customer and the credit card companies.
It just doesn't seem right.
Well, I know we try to ask every month to stop this, and again, it's docket 5022. I believe you have all been sent that paperwork in this submission. If not, I'm be glad to send it over to anyone who would be interested, or it is on the PUC website.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Councilwoman Anthony?
Just in follow-up to Vice Chair's comments, is this a situation where the city would file some sort of objection at the PUC or even send a letter expressing concern? I guess I'm asking that of Mr. Pelosi, yes.
Mr. Pelosi?
Councilwoman Anthony, the PUC regulates Providence Water. They basically tell us what to do through rate filings, through open dockets. We can object, but they will have their meetings with their three commissioners and make a decision. And obviously, it's not always in the utility's favor. It's in the three commissioners' purview to do that.
I do understand that. I guess I'm just saying, I'm just wondering if it's worth submitting a letter, or it just doesn't seem right.
Again, we have submitted letters through our rate attorney.
Okay.
Most recently in December, and we were told that this has to continue. So we constantly knock on the door and try to switch this, and I continually will. But right now, the last answer we got was save the cost.
Okay. Right.
Any comments, questions? So basically what it is that PUC has authority, jurisdiction over you, but the jurisdiction that they need to acquire is over credit card companies. And that would be the federal government. Because right now the credit card company's being made whole. Yes, the ratepayer is getting a break, but it's actually a circular, because at the end, you're paying, but you're gonna have to make up that loss sooner or later with the future ratepayers. So the only thing that this does, in some instances, in the short run, it helps the ratepayer. In the long run, it just helps out credit card companies. And they're the ones that should be, their transaction rates should be lowered or be forced to, a certain percentage. I mean, unfortunately, PUC has no authority on it, but it's really, that's where literally the buck ends in their pocket. And it's kind of sad, because that's where they should be getting a little haircut. They should be taking a little haircut also, but.
You're right, Chairman. The credit card companies, unfortunately, aren't missing a beat.
Yeah, they're right. They're being made whole. All this does is make sure I understand how it helps the ratepayer. I acknowledge that. But the charge isn't coming from the city or Providence Water. The charge is coming from the credit card company that they have a credit card with. It's their credit card company that's charging these rates, right?
That's correct.
So if they have Citibank or whatever it is, whatever Visa or whatever is MasterCard, it's their card that they're using, which is charging them the fee. But instead, PUC is saying, well, the credit card company can charge the fee, but the Providence Water Supply Board, through the ratepayer, in a roundabout way, will pay that fee. It seems to me that since we have, right now, we're in such a position, Rhode Island in particular, in the federal level, this seems to be something that we should try to petition a federal delegation to see if they could make some adjustment with these credit card companies. This is the time. I'm just saying, I understand what you have to do, but it's at the end, it's still not fair to the ratepayer because they're paying it. They're going to pay it at the end.
Well, Chairman and members, you somewhat allude to that we're going to have to raise rates to pay for this, but I don't want to say this COVID has helped us out, but in some cases we have some projects that we've been able to put on hold and use some of that money through operations, through the general budget, to offset these fees. So I don't believe, and I'll let Nancy weigh in, I don't believe we will need to go back to the PUC in a rate filing and part of it being, the cause of it being these fees. I think we are luckily enough able to have some projects canceled and be able to, unfortunately, pay these monthly bills.
I hope those projects that you guys canceled or had to cancel, and not at the expense of creating clean water. That's my concern, at the end.
Definitely not, Chairman.
Because then it doesn't matter. Providence Water Supply can't provide, as you put, the second best water in the nation. That's not good, so. All right, with that, any other comments? I'm sorry, go ahead.
We would never do that, Chairman.
No, I know you. I wasn't implying that you would. It's just, it's a little disheartening, that's all. With that, any other comments or questions by committee members, council members?
No, Mr. Chair.
That motion to recommend approval and send back to the Board of Council Supplies?
So moved.
Second.
By Vice Chair, second by Councilman Taylor, Councilman Castillo. Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, Mr. Pelosi, Ms. Perillo. Thank you for your time. Well, and be safe. Keep up the good work.
Thank you, members. Likewise. Stay safe. Thank you.
Take another item out of order. Motion to take item number 15 out of order and take up.
So moved.
Second.
Vice Chair, second, Councilman Taylor. Discussion. All in favor? Madam Clerk, item number 15, please.
Resolution memorializing General Assembly and resolution authorizing the City of Providence to issue not to exceed $140 million general obligation bonds, notes, and other evidences of indebtedness to finance the construction, renovation, improvement, alteration, repair, landscaping, furnishing, and equipping of schools and school facilities throughout the city, subject to approval of state housing aid at a reimbursement rate or state share ratio of not less than 75% at the time of issuance, and provided that the authorization shall be reduced by the amount of certain grants received from state bond proceeds from the Rhode Island Department of Education or from the Rhode Island School Building Authority.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Who do we have from the administration to talk about this? Is it Mr. Mancini, Ms. Jordan?
Yes.
And Aaron Easter Gardner is also present, but I think he's listed as an attendee.
Attendee. Oh, there we are. Okay. So, Mr. Clerk, can we swear all Mr. Mancini, Ms. Day, Mr. Gardner in, and then we'll have them identify themselves to the record and et cetera. Mr. Clerk?
Thank you. Will each of you please raise your right hand and swear under penalty of perjury that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
I do.
Ladies first.
Lawrence J. Mancini, Chief Financial Officer, City of Providence.
Okay.
Jordan Day, Senior Deputy Chief Operating Officer for the City of Providence.
Aaron Easter Gardner, Director of Intergovernmental Affairs for the City of Providence.
Thank you. Who would like to speak on this matter first?
If you don't mind,
So,
Al.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make an opening remark, and then I will defer to my colleagues who have been tracking this resolution and legislation. You may recall that this august body did give us authority to move forward to put this 140 million as a bond borrowing question on the ballot. And I'm pleased to report and remind the committee that the voters did approve it in an overwhelming fashion. And this begins the process in motion of identifying the projects that would be included in future borrowing, and I believe would require a matter before the General Assembly. So with that, I will defer to Mr. Gardner, who is our legislative liaison, and Ms. Jordan Day, who has done the bulk of the work associated with this resolution and the attendant projects. At this point, Mr. Chairman, with your permission, I will defer to either one of my colleagues.
Thank you. Continue. Is it Mr. Gardner today? Mr. Gardner?
Yeah, yes,
sir.
I'll chime in. Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, members of the committee, for inviting me this evening. Just to tack on with what Larry said, this resolution is authorizing $140 million with additional funds for school construction. Coupled with the bond approval from 2018, it's really going to be the largest investment ever seen really for our public schools. As everyone knows, back in 2019, the state took over our school district, and as Larry has mentioned, we have identified with RIDE and with PPSD the projects to make sure that they still all fit. And also, as Larry mentioned, this was the same resolution that was passed by this committee and then the full council this past August, so we really appreciate that. Unfortunately, the General Assembly just wasn't able to act last session, just for the timing and the technical difficulties they had, with COVID, et cetera, and all the difficulties we've all seen. But the resolutions have been submitted now to the General Assembly. I actually spoke to our own Rep. Grace Diaz this morning, and she let me know that it's in the pipeline on the House side. So you guys will see those. So those are in line to be introduced and hopefully passed by the General Assembly in short order. And this is the same resolution in relation to that. That's what I can share.
Thank you, Mr. Gardner. Ms. Day? Anything to
I
add?
have very little to add. I am just here just in case you had any specific questions to cite back to what we discussed over the summer. This particular bond, we at the time were talking about a project that was a little bit more ambiguous at the time, but it is the Palino Properties donation of 21 Peace Street. That was the major project that we were talking about at the time, in addition to about 7 other projects that we're finishing our stage 2 application for. We'll be submitting this September. So if there are any specific questions, I'm happy to answer them, but I'm just here as a subject matter expert tonight.
All right, any comments, questions by committee members?
No, Mr. Chair.
Okay. So, I just wanted to check on one other thing. Mr. Mancini, earlier, we also talked about refinancing, just very quickly, a refinance of a bond. Do you remember that earlier? And,
I do.
And have we done that yet?
We have, Mr. Chairman. We have. We priced on December 17th in a very favorable market, and at that time we determined that we would be able to generate nearly $2 million in savings between the 2 bond issues, 2010A and 2013. One of those, you may recall, we weren't certain whether or not it would price favorably. It did, and so on January 12th, we were able to close, and net of all fees, the city was able to secure $2 million, and I believe $2,070,000. $1.8 million will be funded this year. The other $200,000 in fiscal 22. But it was a successful transaction, and we certainly thank the council and its affiliates for all of the support that we had during that process. But it was a highly successful transaction late in the year.
Great, thank you. And actually, I just read recently, I guess, the Fed are going to maintain the 0 interest rate. Is that correct? Did I read that correct?
Mr. Chairman, if I could be somewhat anecdotal, I was on the phone this morning with Hilltop Securities and on a different matter. Based upon that declaration, I raised that same point to Mr. Craig, and he said, Chief Mancini, you wouldn't believe it, but yesterday the city of East Providence did a seven-month ban, and they closed at 10 basis points. So these are ideal times, no less, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee, but we'll keep that in mind as we move forward.
Always is when you have to pay any interest when you take money out from the bank. That's great, isn't it? So, well, great. All right,
Well,
so
I think you can't borrow any cheaper than 10 basis points, maybe zero.
I know, right? It's fantastic. So with that, any other comments?
In fact, it almost feels like that. All you gotta do is put your mask on. You're getting it for free.
Be careful.
Any other comments or questions? Then a motion to
No.
recommend approval of the
No, Mr.
resolution?
Chair, other than the fact, if I can, I just want to pat our finance team on the back for putting that transaction together. Mr. Mancini laughs about putting on the mask, but being prudent and diligent and managing our bonds is always such an important component of the work they do, and we really appreciate the fine job that they do. With that, I recommend approval.
And thank you, Madam Leader. And I would be remiss if I didn't extend the same cooperation to your finance team as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
I want to give you a chance to speak. I want to get my second done first.
Thank you.
Vice Chair, second by Council Castillo. Discussion. Mr. Mancini, you can reiterate your...
Mr. Chairman, I would be remiss if I didn't acknowledge the same cooperation of the City Council finance members. They were highly cooperative through the entire process, and it closed with unusual expediency, I must say, for a transaction that was priced the week before the holidays. Thank you again, Leader Ryan. You were instrumental in getting us the ability to get that on the special docket, as well as the council president and your leadership team and the council. We thank you very much for that opportunity.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So any other comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Thank you. Just one last question. Mr. Gardner, what do you think is the ETA of the General Assembly on this matter?
Yeah, so I spoke with speaking with Rep. Diaz this morning. She informed me that on the House side, they were still working on a lot of their committees. So they're a little behind, but I suspect that within the next 3 weeks or so, honestly, we asked that they be passed by the end of February, just for clarity. So that's our hope.
Thank you, sir. With that, thank you all for your participation. Can you just take a moment to stand at ease for 1 second, and we'll come back to the last item.
Wow, that's pretty exciting.
We are back. Mr. Heeman, can you hear me, sir? Mr. Heeman? Who else are going, before, this way we can, for the clerk to handle the technical aspect?
Sure.
Who else on the list needs to be promoted? promoted from lieutenant to major or captain?
It should be Mark Van Oppen, who's in the attendees, and
Okay.
Seth Zarin in the
Thank you.
attendees.
All right.
I see Mr. Budway's in the attendees as well. I think he was intending to speak, as I understood it.
Yeah, Mr. Budway, of course. He's the attorney. Okay. With that said, let's, Madam Clerk, let's read the last item on the docket and begin that process.
An ordinance establishing a tax stabilization agreement for RCG Armory Parkview LLC located at 35 Parade Street, 41 Street, 12 Oak Street, and 19R Willow Street.
Great. And could you just very quickly just recap? It looks like it was introduced in February of 2019. We scheduled for public hearing. We held a public hearing in October of 2019, and then we continued it, of course, and then we continued again in 2020, and now we are here today. Correct? Mr. Clerk, could you please swear in Mr. Heeman, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Van Noppen, and then we can, those three, please.
Would you all please raise your right hand? Do you swear under penalty of perjury that the testimony you are about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth to help you God?
I do.
Yeah.
I do.
Mr. Heeman, state your name for the record, et cetera, and then Mr. Zeman and Mr. Van Noppen.
Mr. Chairman, Nicholas Heemand, Darrow Everett, Providence, Rhode Island, on behalf of the applicant RCG Armory Parkview LLC.
Thank you. Mr. Zeman?
Seth Zarin, on behalf of the applicant, RCG Armory Parkview LLC.
Mr. Chairman, Mark Van Noppen, on behalf of the applicant, RCG Armory Parkview.
Great, thank you. And I believe, Sam, by the way, you're gonna weigh in on from your end as a city official. Is that correct, sir?
Correct, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Okay.
Mr. Chairman?
Wait, Councilman Anthony, I'm sorry. Councilman Anthony? Yep. No problem.
Just was wondering, I'm a little confused because there was an email that we received at 4:55 today saying that this presentation had been removed from the Confluence site as it will be continued per the chair. So I just was wondering why we would receive that.
About the TSA report.
Yeah, it was actually, Madam Councilwoman, it was actually, that was item number 11, not item 12.
Oh, thank you.
It was item number 11, that was the one. Item 11 is the one we continued, and I think that's what made it confusing on the email that sent to you.
I apologize for any confusion.
Okay, thank you. So the subject line wasn't right. All right, thank you.
So with that, can we do this? And I guess, Mr. Heeman, you're going to be the lead on this, I presume. Can you give us, can you refresh the committee, the council members' recollection on the project, what it is, what it's about, and what your client is trying to achieve there, and give us the pros and cons. Mr. Heeman, you have the mic, sir. Oh, one thing, do you have any, what do you call it, shots or anything? Is there anything on that?
Yeah, I can go ahead and share a screen.
Mr. Zarin can share his screen.
Okay, I'm going to try that now.
Beyond my skill set.
Oh, it's, I needed to be enabled. Says I need host disabled participant screen sharing.
You should be fine now.
Okay. Oh.
You got it?
Okay, it looks like it's working. One second.
All right.
Can everyone see a building?
Yes.
Yes, we have. Okay.
Great.
So Mr. Heeman, why don't you recap, and then we can go from there.
All right, so as you stated, this is a project that obviously the ordinance has been around for a while. A public hearing took place some time ago. It's a tough project. It's a good project, but it is a tough project. And the time that Mr. Zarin and Mr. Van Oppen and their partners have been working on it is a reflection of that. What you see in this photograph or rendering rather, excuse me, is the two phases of the project. Phase one is the rehabilitation of the historic structure, which is the structure to the right. And then phase two is the construction of the new structure, which is to the left. So in total, it's 50,000 square feet of development, part historic rehabilitation and part new construction. The property as it stands today is worth about $2.4 million, generates about $600,000 a year in tax revenue. When the project is complete, it'll be worth, I think, upwards of close to about $11 million. And the tax revenue generated over the life of the over the life of the TSA will double the amount received on an annual basis to about $1.3 million a year to the city. It is a residential development. And as I said, it's been a very tough project. Historic rehabilitation, I think as many of you know from your service on this council and your service in other areas of the city, historic rehabilitation is generally considerably more expensive than new construction. When we used to advocate for the historic tax credit program, the general consensus from Grossmar at that time was that it can cost almost sometimes 3 times as much excuse me, it can cost a third to a 45% more to do historic rehabilitation as opposed to new construction. So it's taken a lot to get this project to the finish line and ready to put a shovel in the ground. Obviously, we come to you pursuant to our application in 2019 for a tax stabilization agreement. It's about $11 million in construction costs associated with this project. And we come to you now, but this is not the only part of the public-private partnership that is possible. It is the last piece. It is the most critical piece. We were able to get approval from the Commerce Corporation for $1 million in Rebuild Rhode Island credits. That was a lengthy process, an arduous process to get. So there's that component as well. We have a financing in place that contemplates this TSA. And we're looking at a 2-phase construction process. So, phase one will begin and then they will move on to phase two. It's a market rent project. Phase two, the intent of the applicants is to have an affordable component in some fashion to the second phase of the project.
Yep,
Sorry, I heard
continue.
something there.
Sometimes it's technical difficulty, but we're gonna soldier on. Mr. Heeman?
Sure. But it's predominantly majority market rents. You're looking at about 70 construction jobs in connection with the build out and about $225,000 in building permit fees that will be generated. So, one thing is, this project is moving forward. It's moving forward despite the uncertainty in the economy that we faced as a result of the COVID pandemic. And I think projects like this are going to be important because all the opportunities we have for new development in the city are critical that we take advantage of those right now, because what's going to happen, particularly with our commercial real estate, is when those tax bills come out in July, you're going to see a wave of appeals of tax values because of what's happened over the last year. Most of these projects, commercial properties, large residential properties, are taxed based on their income, and they've all taken a hit, as you know, as every American and every resident in the city and the state has taken a hit in some fashion as a result of this pandemic. So this will generate much needed revenue over the course of time. Just the building permit fees alone are a third of the taxes in a year, and you're going to have the opportunity to double the revenue that's coming in. I'll let Mr. Zarin flip through some of these photos, some of the drawings and the renderings. He can sort of fill you in on any project details that I may have missed and some of their efforts in, working on this project. And then I can come back and talk a little bit more, about this is developers that you're familiar with, whether it's been the Armory Revival, Mr. Zarin and Mr. Van Oppen have partnered on other things. Mr. Van Oppen's been developing in the west end of Providence for over 40 years. It's a continual group of people who continue to reinvest in the city. Sometimes they do it through tax stabilizations and sometimes they don't. This particular partnership, RCG, Armory Revival, they in the last 3 years have spent over $20 million, mostly along West Fountain Street and Westminster Street, focused primarily on commercial rehabilitation and putting properties back into the useful life in that area. They've done most of that without any tax stabilizations. They may have one pending for a administrative TSA, but these are people you're familiar with. They're people with a track record. They're people from the area that they work in. And we're lucky as a city to have them, and that they're still, even after all this time, reinvesting in Providence and trying to make it a stronger community for everybody. So I'll let Mr. Zarin take you through some of these slides quickly. Again, most of this you've seen, but again, it was over a year ago. So.
Thank you, Nick.
Thank you, Mr. Heeman. Mr. Zeman?
So thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I'm going to show you some pictures, some renderings of the building as it is and as we hope to make it, and talk a little bit as we get to the end about the financial structure here as well. So this, as Nick mentioned, is the front elevations of the two structures that we hope to build. Just a quick rundown of the program. There are two phases we're contemplating right now. So the expectation is we'll start phase 1 this spring, which is 12 apartments in the existing building. These would be all 2-bedroom, 2-bath apartments. We'll come back to the layouts a little bit. Because of the way we're taking a historic tax credit driven approach, we're using the rooms and the spaces that are there. The idea of the second phase is that we would do 19 units that have been approved under CPC master and preliminary plan approval. I should state the existing structure also has CPC and Historic District Commission approvals as well. The second phase is currently contemplated as 19 units with a mix of 1-bedroom, 2-bedroom, and actually some 3-bedroom units, which we're pretty excited to see because we haven't seen a whole lot of new construction 3-bedroom apartments. And of course, we're right on a big park, and we think that'd be a really nice thing to have as a more family-oriented unit type. So that's the goal for the project overall. We've got parking on site for that program of use. And as we sort of come at this with our first goal is to preserve this unique historic structure, which is actually the original home of Miriam Hospital. And then obviously to restore the building as a signal property in the West End, right on Dexter Training Ground. And we also see there's an opportunity to create diversity of housing stock. I mentioned the 3-bedroom apartments, but we're also both these buildings will be elevator, handicap accessible, ramp in the building structures, which is actually very unusual in the neighborhood and in the historic district. And so that may be appealing for young families with strollers. It may be appealing for empty nesters who have less mobility. So we see that as a nice addition to the mix of residential types in the neighborhood. So I'm going to bring us through some more slides. This is a picture of the building as it was originally constructed, more or less, where you can see the front stoops have been removed, unfortunately. They were beautiful Victorian townhouse stoops built in, we think, the 1890s, plus or minus. This is the building today. After it was converted to Miriam Hospital in the 1920s, in the 1950s, when Miriam moved to the east side, it was converted to a nursing home use. That use continued in operation until about 2.5 years ago. The then operator was closing the facility, and that's when we acquired it as they were closing it and relocating the residents actually to Bannister House on the other side of Cranston Street, which was undergoing a significant renovation at the time. It was a very lovely building in a lot of ways, but it was a very tough building for a nursing home use. It obviously was not designed for that. Infrastructure, space conditioning, electricity. It was a very challenging building to really achieve that use. So part of our goal is to bring it back to its original residential use. Here are some pictures of the building from the outside, pre-acquisition mostly. On the upper left-hand corner, you can see that they used to basically store their dumpsters on the sidewalk. They had an outside generator. The second means of fire escape was this exterior fire escape you see in the upper right-hand corner. On the lower left-hand corner, there was a structure in 45 Parade, which is now open land, but that foundation is actually there and everything's sort of settled around it. So we'd be restoring that condition. And then there's some evidence of water damage to the masonry around some of the windowsills. So those are some indications of the kinds of challenges we'll be undertaking as part of the renovation process. Here are some pictures from the inside of the building. Most of these are pre-remediation. We have gone through complete asbestos remediation and substantial lead remediation. We have removed an underground oil tank from the building. Fortunately, no leak was found. So we've already undertaken a fair amount of exploratory demolition, quite a lot of toxic material remediation. And so we're excited again to put this building back into service. One of the big changes, one of the big challenges we face here is that when they converted it to the hospital use, they changed the structure of the building in a way that I don't think was fully thought through. And so over the decades, there has been substantial settling in the wood frame. The masonry exterior is actually in reasonably solid condition, although there's some water damage, but the wood frame inside the building has taken quite a bit of settling. And so one of our challenges to this process will be either, there's one section of the building we may have to reframe inside entirely. We may just take it down and reframe, rebuild the floor systems, or we may be able to reinforce it. We're still finalizing which way will be most cost effective. Just give you a sense of the kind of structural work that we're going to undertake. Here's a picture of the site plan. On the right, you see the first phase, 31 Parade Street, and then 45 Parade Street on the left, sort of grayed out in our sort of proposed subdivision. We're going to be subdividing these parcels to better correspond to the building locations. That plan has been drawn up, but we haven't finalized those approval with the city, but it's the same lots either way. This is a picture of the rendering looking down Parade Street to give you a sense of the massing and scale of the building and the pattern of the building. But it's also a little bit of a misleading photograph because, of course, there are street trees here. That's what that view actually looks like. So the mass of the buildings would be still substantially concealed by the trees, the many trees we're fortunate enough to have in our neighborhood and that we are big fans of supporting and planting. Part of the renovation of the existing structure is the addition of on the back of the building. And that addition is in part because we need a fire compliant stair and additional living space to sort of justify that additional expansion space. So we have a sort of contemporary but evocative of the massing and layout and scale proportion of the existing structure. It's a more contemporary layout. It's reflecting some of the changes in the lot area. We are excited about using a terracotta, almost like a shingle system on the outside of the building, which will make it really have a nice natural material look, a really durable material, something that will patina with age and not look cheap. And so we're really excited about that.
Seth, you've been to Planning, Historic District Commission, so you've already done all that. You got your preliminary plan approval and such.
We have, and we also have our Part 2 approval from the U.S. Park Service for our historic approvals. This is a view from the south of the building, showing a nighttime vision. This is before the construction of Phase 2, which Park Service asked for this view because we weren't sure whether it would happen immediately or not. So give you another sense of what the building might look like. This is a floor plan layout showing the 3 apartments per floor. This is a typical upper floor layout. The apartments would range in size from about 1,200 square feet to about 1,700 square feet. I mentioned earlier that that's pretty large. We know it's large. We had to follow the building in order to achieve the historic tax credits and other things we were pursuing that way. And it had big rooms. And so to sort of work with the rooms that were there, not torture the building, we kind of had to follow that logic. So that's what we did. And so we ended up with relatively large apartments. But we think that they might be really meet a market demand for either families or empty nesters or other people who may have a harder time fitting into some of the existing housing stock in the neighborhood. We have some financial information we're prepared to share. This slide includes sources and uses. So, about for Phase 1, I should say. So for Phase 1, I don't have like full sources and uses for both phases, but for this is the concept, and this includes the carried forward in Phase 2.
Mr. Zerin, can you make sure that all these slides gets forwarded to the city clerk so it can enter into the record officially?
Of course.
If you can do it, if you have the ability to do it, Mr. Clerk, you can send him an email or something.
I can do it while he's talking, Mr. Chairman. I have them in an email.
Great.
Please do. Thank you. Mr. Zerin, you can continue, sir.
Yep. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So, we know one of the things that folks have, we've heard feedback from people in the neighborhood and elsewhere in the city about a question of affordability. And, we're mindful of that. I think Mr. Hemmond was referring to that, we have done a lot of affordable housing construction over the years as a company. We've built something on the order of 200 to 225 income restricted affordable units over the life of the Armory family of companies out of the some 700 or so residential units that we've either built or rehabbed over the years. We have active projects right now. There's a project in Tiverton. It's a legacy project of the Armory family of companies that's being pursued right now for affordable housing, workforce housing there. And this project is not that. And I know that not everyone is happy about that. We are not able to sort of change course on this first phase. We are so tight that we don't have any extra wiggle room here. But we have made the commitment to the neighborhood, to the council person, that in the second phase, which, we have a design, we have an approval, but, is not fully baked, we are going to pursue subsidies and other things that might allow us to do some income restricted units, if that works out. And, we really do believe that we want a mixed income neighborhood. We see this project as part of that.
You see that?
Part of that goal. So there's a few things that we're responding to in the market here. We mentioned the idea of empty nesters, young professionals. We're also responding to the city's comprehensive housing task plan that's just been released in draft format, which talks about the need for housing at all price levels. And one of the reasons we need housing at all price levels is because when we don't build housing for families that have over 100% of the area median income, what they end up doing is they rent down. So they will rent or buy housing stock that's less expensive and either upgrade it or increase the price by bidding it up. And so one of the things that's exciting about this site is that we're able to build 31 new homes in the Armory Historic District in the West End without displacing anyone on the site. So we're actually adding to the housing stock. And we're adding to the housing stock new unit types that don't currently exist in the neighborhood in any appreciable number. So we're really excited about doing that. We know, our average rent, we expect to be in the first phase to be around $2,500 a month, which I know is a lot of money. We rent apartments at that price point in the neighborhood, but not many. We do have people that come to us asking for apartments at that price point. And, we hear that it's a lot of money compared to what a lot of people are expecting or have paid for in the neighborhood. But one of the things happening is these are very large apartments relative to 1,700 square feet is frankly very large of an apartment in this neighborhood. And so our per square foot rent is $1.70, $1.69 per square foot, which is actually quite moderate in the neighborhood, even for existing rehab projects. And some of the new construction projects are pushing $2.50 a foot. They're smaller units, so the rent's less, but in terms of what you're paying for and what you're getting, it's very tight. Another sort of thought experiment that's worth considering is that, to follow the HUD guidelines of, paying less than 30% of your gross income as the sort of affordability threshold. If you were a family making $100,000 a year as a family, that's not an outrageous income. It could be two middle-income professionals, a teacher and a police officer, a firefighter and a nurse. And that would put you over that threshold. So we think of this as really middle-class housing. I know the word luxury gets thrown around a lot. It's middle-class housing. And if we don't build it, then those people are going to find houses elsewhere. And I think our goal is we need to make, as the city's comprehensive housing plan pushes for, we need to build a lot of houses for everyone at every price point. The last thing I'll say is that our expected return on equity over the 15-year hold period that we've modeled, it's also the length of the TSA, is about 10%, which is sort of the low end of feasible for us, for our investor partners. It's very tight. Not everyone wants to rush into a project that's expensive, complicated new construction at a 10% return. But Mark and I and our team are really passionate about this site, about preserving this building, about doing something that's really adding to the neighborhood. And so we're persevering. We're not here to make a windfall. We're here to restore a building and improve the neighborhood over time. So I'm just gonna wrap up there. I'm happy to take any questions. Oh, this is a little schedule, which will also be part of the packet. So we've done a lot over the last couple of years. We obviously took a slowdown this last year because of COVID. We sort of put the project on hold last spring. We're back now with enough confidence to move forward and expecting to start this spring or summer if we can maintain the TSA and all of our final approvals. So thank you all. We're happy to take any questions you might have.
Mr. Chairman, before you have questions for Mr. Zarin, I just want to say that I've been a part of a lot of these tax stabilizations, and I almost never really have my clients say all that much, and I certainly very rarely have them make a presentation beyond what you see in the the 2 minutes they talk at a public hearing. But I thought it was important that the council hear directly from Mr. Zarin, Mr. Van Appen, because again, these are local people that are doing this, that live in the neighborhood that they're developing, and that have spent their time working in the neighborhood that they're developing in. And also, I don't know that I've ever had a client actually tell you the return that they're getting on it. They're trying to be very transparent about this. This is a passion project of theirs. They're very, very dedicated to preserving the historic structure. And, they really have a legacy of all kinds of housing and a commitment to all kinds of housing. And I was before the Planning Commission on another project a couple of months ago, and we talked about the housing for all goal in the comprehensive plan. I think is H3, and Mr. Azar from the Planning Department really touched on what that is that you need your micro lofts, your smaller units, you need your subsidized housing, you need your workforce housing, you need your downtown housing, but you also need diversity in size of units. And these are big units. They're big apartments. They abut a park. And I think they're going to do they're going to attract people into the neighborhood. They're going to retain people in the neighborhood. And I think this is exactly the sort of benefit you're looking for in a public-private partnership for tax stabilization. So we're happy to entertain any questions that the council may have with regard to this project.
Thank you. Is Mr. Van Noppen going to speak, or are we going to go into questions by committee members?
He's here if necessary, or needed, if someone has a specific question for him.
I think unless there's something that folks want to hear from me, I was pleased
Mr.
with.
Van Noppen?
Yes, Mr. Chair. I was pleased with the presentation and how I don't think I can add anything to that, although I'd be more than happy to answer any questions. Okay,
great. Let the record reflect that President Matos is present also. Okay. With that, do we have any questions from committee members? I cannot see all their hands if there is, so you need to show me the litany of folks.
Mr. Zarin, can you just stop sharing the screen now?
Oh, sure. Yep. Let me just do that.
Thank you. So I see Councilwoman Anthony. Councilwoman Anthony?
Yes.
Her hands up.
Yes,
Anthony?
thank you, Mr. Chair. I just have a question for Mr. Zarin. What is the timing of phase 2?
It's a good question. We ask ourselves that too. I think it depends a lot on the success of phase 1. If there is no phase 1, we don't know that phase 2 is a thing, right? So I think in the best possible world, it might proceed fairly quickly. I think the idea that we're going to pursue a subsidized, some component of subsidized affordable housing probably slows it down a little bit, because we'll need to go in for subsidies, and that can take an extra year or two. But I think we would look to proceed fairly quickly. But of course, it's hard to predict the future.
So the TSA is for both phases, correct?
Correct.
So you would be committed to do a phase 2 at some point?
Correct.
Okay, and then the second question I had was on the rents, the $2,500 per unit. Was that the estimate, or is that a 1-bedroom, 2-bedroom? What is that?
No, it's a good question. So that's an average rent across the building, and the ranges we have, a couple below $2,000 a month, some on the upper, 2,700 range. It's variable, obviously. All of the apartments in this building are 2 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms. Some of them are 2.5 baths. They all have like kitchen, living room, dining room, so they're big. I guess is sort of the way I would describe them.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Any other comments or questions? Okay. I see Councilwoman Miller. Councilwoman Miller.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So first, I really want to thank Mr. Zarin and Mr. Van Noppen. My colleagues know for the last 2 months, and much longer than that, but particularly for the last 2 months, we've been going back and forth with the neighborhood, various portions of the neighborhood, and these two folks from Marbury. So I cannot emphasize enough their willingness to engage a dialogue and, as Mr. Heeman said, also to be transparent in what's going on moving forward. I'm not sure if everyone has received the letters from the neighborhood, and I'm not sure which ones went to the clerk and which ones went to me. So I will just tell you that over the last 2 months, I have gotten a number of calls and letters about this project. The West Broadway Neighborhood Association had a CDC meeting about this project. And what's really happening in this corner of the West End is, a story I think we all know. It's one where rent has risen very rapidly over the last decade or so. And there's increasingly concern about neighbors being priced out. And so I think when it comes to a publicly subsidized project, neighbors are really looking for affordability, inclusivity, and a commitment to that. And so, I can't support this project at this time, but I do, again, have all the respect for Mr. Zarin and Mr. Marinoppin, who've again engaged the conversation repeatedly, trying to find a middle ground. I mean, I think you should have the West Broadway Neighborhood CDC letter, which explicitly asks for affordability in this phase. And then, I think there's been a discussion about a commitment to affordability in the second phase, but I think the neighborhood would need a little more certainty on that for me to be able to support it. But yeah, so thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thanks again for the presentation tonight.
Thank you, Madam Councilwoman. What I'll do is I actually have them, and I was going to enter into the record, but there's a lot, so I was going to put it all in one shot, but I'll do that now if you want. So let's do this first. So if we could, and this is kind of where it's slightly odd, but let's start off with this. There is a letter, I guess identified as exhibit, whatever the appropriate exhibit. There's several exhibits in this matter. There's West Broadway Neighborhood Association letter, right?
Yes, if we can
Well,
draw them, there are about 15.
I know, but
Sure.
I understand what there is. Let me, just bear with me. So we'll identify this West Broadway Neighborhood Association letter as the exhibit 1 to item number 12?
12A, I think.
To 12, I guess, 12A. And it's a letter from the West Broadway Neighborhood Association dated December 29, 2020. And it lays out their position. It talks.
You didn't tell me. Could we make Mr. Zarin's presentation 12A and then we'll go with this for the 12B?
Oh, yes, of course. Okay. So, well then, we're gonna make a well, we haven't entered his in there, right? Okay. So let me restart again. I believe Mr. Zarin has submitted his slideshow. Is that correct? So we'll enter that into the record as Exhibit 12A. Excuse me, Exhibit 12A to item 12. Motion for that?
So moved.
Vice Chair, second by Councilwoman Anthony.
Second, okay.
Second.
Discussion, all in favor? Aye. Next, let's identify for the record the letter from West Broadway Neighborhood Association, WBNA, dated December 29, 2020. We'll identify as Exhibit 12B, right? You said 12B you want? Right? To item number 12. And it's looks like it's a 2-page letter, and it lays out their position on the matter. I'll quickly just simply say, I'll just go to what they offered as following comments. I'll read them into the record versus the whole thing. It says, number one, the residents and committee members offered the following comments, and I think this is what Councilwoman Miller was alluding to. One, diversity, equity, and inclusion. One of the cherished aspects of our West End neighborhood is its multifaceted social economic diversity, including income diversity. You described that the proposed project is primarily targeted to empty nesters with disposable income, period. We trust that, in exchange for the TSA and the spirit of equity and inclusion, comma, the proposed project be redeveloped in such a way that is welcoming to future tenants of all descriptions of diversity, including income levels. 2, next bullet, affordability. The neighborhood needs affordable housing. The CDC requests that a minimum of 2 of the units be affordable, comma, with 1 unit serving households below 60% of area median income and 1 serving households below 80% area median income. Bullet number 3, handicap access. The 4-story building will have an elevator and should provide at least 1 unit laid out and outfitted for handicapped tenants. Bullet number 4, outdoor space. Currently, the project site includes the building footprint, a large parking lot, walkways from the parking lot to the building, and minimal perimeter green space. We reiterate our request that the parking lot area / spaces be reduced to allow for more green space. I believe that's it, and the letter also talks further about it. So all in favor?
We need a motion to make that 12B. Is that what your intention was?
12B, yep, 12, this letter to be identified as 12B to item number 12.
So moved.
Second.
By Councilman Anthony. Discussion, all in favor? Aye. Thank you. Next, I'm going to bundle them together, but I have 1, 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 13, 14. I know we haven't got there. 14 emails from individuals throughout the city of Providence, and like identified as Exhibit 12C to item number 12. And to explain what they are, I have a motion by Vice Chair, second by Councilman Anthony. To further identify them, there are emails from Miguel Youngs, Catherine Tompkins, Caroline Corey, Giuseppe Crosby, Ben Ledbetter, Julius Ferraro, Laurel Leak, Jeremy Harris, Michael Cheatham, Jordan Root, Dara Watt, Kathy G. Johnson, Caroline Maker, and Ryan McCarthy. And these emails all state there that they about their concern. And I'll read one of the emails because they all seem to say the same thing in it, slightly different. So I think I'll just use one of the emails, and I think you'll get the gist of what the rest say. They say, this one says, my name is Miguel Youngs. I'm a lifelong resident of Providence, living in the ward, 105 D. Pasquale Ave. I'm writing to voice concern about the proposed TSA ordinance from the new Parkview development on Parade Street. In my opinion, what this neighborhood needs is more housing that is actually affordable for those who currently reside here. I firmly believe public funds should never go to project with higher end units unless the project as a whole encompasses mixed income housing. For those who live here, it's clear that the proposed development will not meet the neighborhood's needs, as rental units that range from $1,900 to $2,700 will be unaffordable to so many residents in an area with a median income of around $40,000. Projects that do not serve Providence neighborhoods should not receive public subsidies, and I hope you will oppose the Parkview TSA as a project is currently construed. And all the letters reference, of course, the rental unit ranges from $1,900 to $2,700, the median income of $40,000, and also asking that, stating they are opposed and asking us to oppose the TSA. With that, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
The last item to enter into the record at this time is, we're going to identify it as Exhibit D, Exhibit 12D, to item number 12. It's a letter to the committee, myself, and from RCG Armory Parkview LLC, and the array is request for tax stabilization agreement 31-41 Parade Street, 45 Parade Street, 12 Oak Street, and 19R Willow Street. the letter and signed by Seth Zarin, and of course, it just reiterates, or it states what Mrs. Zarin just pretty much said
So
few minutes
moved.
ago.
So moved.
Motion by Vice Chair, second by Councilman Taylor. Discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Now, get into all the exhibits. Do any of the council members or committee members have any comments or statements or questions? Okay, I don't see any hands raised. Okay, with that, Mr. Heeman, Mr. Zarin, Mr. Van Noppen, do you have any comments and or any reaction to the exhibits and the statements by the council member and all the emails that were submitted at this time?
This is Mark, if I could, Mr. Chairman. I do appreciate the work that Councilperson Miller has put in on this. And I know that she's spent a lot of time on it and is passionate about it. We've, I think for us, we're, like Mr. Heyman said, we're very much developers of all types of housing and very much want to do affordable housing in another project. So the second phase. We're also working on a project in Olneyville that would have affordable housing. That's got hurdles of its own. And so it won't be happening in 2021, but we're starting work on the development. So there's more coming. This is just one of many projects that we're doing. We're committed to, neighborhood building across the spectrum. For us, it's not, houses are not products. Houses are where people live. And so we're pretty much, this is our life's work. This is what we do, is build neighborhoods, build communities. You can't please everybody all the time with everything, but we think this is a really nice project for a pretty diverse group of people. So we're excited about it and hope that you'll vote favorably tonight.
I'd like to follow Mark if possible. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. I second what Mark's just said. I'd also like to add that housing is like interconnected, and we know that people are moving back to the city. Many of those people are coming with higher incomes, and they're going to want to buy houses, or they're going to want to rent houses, and we see that in our regular work, the housing that we manage as a company day to day. And part of what I'm passionate about is building. I feel we have like this moral responsibility to build homes for people, and if we don't do that, then there's not going to be enough homes to go around, and so the people with more money are going to win that game of musical chairs. And I think if we can build, I get it, not everyone who's in the neighborhood now is going to want to afford those rents, and I hear that. But if we can absorb some of the new people that are moving in and keep them from buying existing homes or renting existing apartments, I think it does help. I think there's some pretty good evidence now coming out in the study of this that helps. But when people move to the city, or when people get new jobs and gain more economic opportunity in this city, they would like nicer houses, or they want to consume more house or whatever. So I really do think that there is a way that building these new homes, which again are not taking the place of any existing homes, adds to the housing stock of the city and actually helps protect the lower cost housing stock that we still have.
Thank you. Any final comments or questions? Do we have a motion at this time?
Motion to approve, to recommend approval.
Second.
By Vice Chair, I have a second by Councilman Taylor. Discussion. I would just like to say that if this was 2 years ago, 3 years ago, when the city and the nation was probably at that time its apex economy, the growth was just moving along. I myself, in fact, I had a conversation with someone just recently, and they were talking about development and stuff, and I've been very fortunate enough to be on the ground floor of negotiating the development from the G-Tech building to the Providence Place Mall, to the Blue Cross Blue Shield, to every major development in downtown Providence, I've been at those development tables, and I've been extremely proud of the work that my council colleagues and myself have achieved over, hate to say it for me, over the past 3 decades. And what you see today out the window is a result of a tremendous amount of hard work from several individuals, from several mayors, from several council members, working with developers and communities and organizations to try to put the city in a place where it is today that for a lot of folks did not exist 20 years ago, 25 years ago. I've lived in the city my whole life. I know most of my colleagues have. I've seen the transformation of the struggles the city's had, and where we were just a mere 2 years ago. What does give me pause today is when I first came on, there was a lot of boarded up housing, businesses were boarded up, and it took a lot of effort to get where we were, or where we are, not more than 12 months ago. And my concern today is that there's this insidious thing occurring, which is, unfortunately, this COVID health crisis is wreaking havoc, of course, on people's health, wreaking havoc on people's lives. People are passing away, people are struggling, and it's also wreaking havoc on the economics at every level. And when I took a quick walk, like I usually do before the finance meeting, to just see how the city's doing, to see what's going on, and seeing no one out there, seeing businesses boarded up, seeing it reminds me of 3 decades ago. It's really concerning. I recognize and I appreciate what the neighborhood's talking about and people are concerned about. I also recognize the fact that I commend the developer for willing to still continue to take a chance, because I'm sure your business model and your financial model has dynamically changed when you first began this journey with us back in February of 2019, right? It was introduced in February 2019. I mean, we have gone to an awful lot. I hope you are successful in a lot of ways. I just don't know. And by the way, I'm going to defer. I'll be honest with you, I just don't know. I don't know if after you build it, will they come? After you build it, can you even, I noticed in those emails, people talking about the rental. I don't know. I'm going to defer that. I don't know if you end up getting that rental range. I wonder if that even happens. Right now, as we know, there's a moratorium on evictions in residential. And there's this buildup of folks who are struggling to make their present rent in the city, not to mention the whole nation. And I wonder how that's all going to play out. I hate to say I see that the financial shoe really hasn't fallen yet, where we are in the housing market, residential market, right? And the good news is, of course, the Fed's kept the interest rate at 0, which potentially can give some relief to some folks to maybe refinance and to restructure their finances. I'm going to support this tax stabilization because my goal is hope. I want to see the glass is half full. I'm hoping this helps show that Providence is still open for business. I hope this shows to folks that Providence is willing to work with developers. I think it's important. As time progresses, we all know there's going to be limited development dollars the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years. And Providence is not a primary location for developers. It's not a primary city. It's in that 3rd level city. And so when developers have cash, when they have money to develop, they're going to be looking at the best places possible for them to be able to turn it around. So I'm hoping as we move forward, I hope the full council supports this, is that I recognize and I empathize and sympathize with the community's concerns, but maybe, just maybe, this Armory proposal in the West End will be the spark that will help us get out of what I perceive as some serious economic development challenge in the next couple of years. Folks, I think hopefully we'll see that we're still open, that we're still willing, and there is still development occurring, and we can keep our doors open in the city of Providence, because we still need to generate a city that people want to feel welcome in, people want to live in, and absolutely all walks of life, by the way. We're a great diverse city, economically, racially, everything, and that's what makes it wonderful. But we also know the economic challenge is coming around. It's actually starting to hit as we speak. So I'm hoping this is the spark, and I hope nothing but the glass is half full, and I hope you good fortune, and hopefully if my committee and the council supports it, that you move forward. And then you mentioned you're looking for that you're willing to commit to affordable housing in the second phase. I hope you can achieve that second phase, by the way. I don't know. I mean, I'm looking forward to that. And my feeling is, if you're able to achieve that second phase with the affordable housing components that you mentioned earlier, that's another step in the right direction. And hopefully that's sooner than later. So that's kind of my perspective on this. It's not, in this particular case, we have to start looking at for the care and financial well-being of the whole city right now. And we have to start thinking a little bit, sometimes a little less provincial, a little bit more cosmopolitan, to say, maybe this can be something that can help, get us in the right direction, be the spark, be the genesis for other folks willing to participate and invest in this great city. So that's where I am. Vice Chair, you have your hand up.
Yes, Mr. Chair, thank you very much. And your remarks are right on the money, and I thank you for that. I would just like to say that I like this development. I like it a lot, and for a number of reasons. First and foremost, we are getting the restoration of a historic property. It's remarkable what your plans showed us. I'm excited about that. And it is true, the cost of rehabbing a historic building is great. We're also getting, this isn't any developer. This is someone we know. This is someone with a proven track record of contributing greatly to the city of Providence. Your work is remarkable. We appreciate it. We appreciate you. I have every confidence that you will be successful in phase one and will go on to phase two. We need to continue to build homes. We do have a great economic burden right now. The only way we're going to ease the cost of housing is by creating more homes for families and individuals that wish to live in our city. And also by creating homes, we'll ease the economic burden because we need workforce housing as well. So this to me is a recipe for success. I support it wholeheartedly. And again, largely because of the developers and their foresight, their past work, and my confidence in their ability to carry this through. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right. No, any more further comments? With that, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? That motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Heeman, Mr. Zerin, Mr. Van Noppen. Good luck on your journey. This matter goes before the full council. I advise you to also contact those council members. Tell them your story, tell them your journey, and tell them what you're trying to achieve. With that, Madam Clerk, is there any more business before this honorable committee? Then, like to
Motion to
entertain-
adjourn, Mr. Chairman.
By Vice Chair. Second by Councilman Taylor, Councilman Castile. Discussion. Thank you all for participating. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Thank you all.